I love old drum gear. Every piece tells a story, but there's something I've learned and I always ask myself, is it special enough for a chance at a new life? And if so, have years of neglect, abuse, and abandonment left it in such a state of decay that it's beyond my abilities for revival? Or... I got an email from a museum wondering if I wanted some old drums from an exhibit that they were downsizing. One of them is this stunning Wurlitzer snare drum. It was made for Wurlitzer by the Leedy Drum Company in the early 1920s. It's 100 years old. To help me decide what to do, I revisited the two main classifications of vintage drum gear, and they are as follows. A player's piece. These are old drums restored with the intent of being used. Sometimes people retrofit modern parts to get the piece looking or sounding right. More often than not, modifying a drum to make it playable means totally destroying any collector's value it might have. A museum piece. A museum piece is a drum kept in its original condition. Scuffs, dents, rust, metal oxidization, it's all preserved. The condition tells a story of its history. The better shape it's in, the more value it holds for collectors, but usually museum pieces are meant to be admired and not played. This snare has been collecting dust for longer than I've been alive. It literally was a museum piece. It had that life. I feel like it wants to be played, and the feeling is mutual. You split my wife, and this is a tragedy. The first step is to break down the entire drum, every single piece, carefully. Then we can look at what to restore, what needs to be replaced, and maybe some modern parts like drum heads to get this thing playable. This magnet sticks to this tension rod, but it doesn't stick to the shell at all. That, along with the color, tells me that this shell is brass. I know back in the day they coated them with nickel. This looks like paint. So I think I'm going to try to get this paint off of here, and I've got a pretty good idea of how to do it. The shell is completely free. Look at how well made this is. With the snare bed, the weld line in here, but I see nothing on this side. Amazing. A 6-lug drum is going to be very, very resonant because there's not a lot of mass on the shell. But listen to how the tube lugs are almost like chimes. Crazy. Nothing fancy here, just a little damp paper towel. So to get this paint off of here, I'm going to go with a paint stripper that worked pretty well for a floor tom I was restoring, this 3M Safest stripper. And I'm just going to go ahead and lovely. I can actually already see some paint starting to come off. So I'm going to wrap this thing up and let it sit for about 3 hours. My weapon of choice is going to be this dish sponge. It's made of plastic, and I don't think that's capable unless I really get in there of messing up the brass. I might have to put another application of this on, but we'll see how much I can get off with the first pass here. Okay, at this point, I think I'm gonna go one more coating of the paint stripper and let it sit for another couple of hours. Let's turn our attention to the hardware here. It's pretty rusted, and what I'm using is a tried and true method that I've used over the years, which is a little bit of steel wool and some dish soap. Remember, if you press too hard, it's gonna scratch the underlying material. Make sure to just be nice and light and let the steel wool do the work. I always wear an extra glove over a rubber glove because this stuff will chew your hands up. These tube lugs are solid brass, but they're plated with nickel, and I'd love to get this nickel off of here. I have a few different ways I can accomplish that. One is to mix together an acid solution and pass electrical current through it and use electrolysis to chemically remove the nickel from the underlying brass. That doesn't sound very appealing to me. A second way is to take this to a metal plater and professionally get it removed. That also doesn't sound very appealing. The third way is to use a little bit of patience and energy to just buff all of this off. This way I have complete control over where I'm buffing this off and how far I'm going down to the brass. So for these stick chopper flangeless hoops, they have some rust. I know from the past I can buff that out, but it's going to leave some black marks where it ate through the plating. I could get new ones. They're about 30 bucks a piece online, but I'd like to use the original hoops. Well, the second coat did a great job removing all the excess paint on the shell, and here's the result. The hardware is all shined up. Let's get it put back together. So here's the strainer. It's the Ledy utility model strainer. And this was the last one they had like this before they went to the sideways lever, which was their Presto model. I gave some thought to the heads and decided to go with a single ply for the batter. It'll take less tension to get up to pitch, and that'll put less pressure on the stick chopper hoops. I've seen some pictures online of these hoops when they get over tensioned, and it's not pretty. Tiny bit of lightweight oil. For the snare side, a nice snare side 300. For snare wires, I went with Pure Sound Custom Pro Brass 24 strand. Aesthetic? Sure, but bright wires on a crisp, warm-shelled drum just seemed like a good fit. So, can it be saved? Yeah, saved and reborn. If I could do it again, probably wouldn't have buffed the nickel off of these lugs. It was a comical amount of work. Take it to a plater, get it dipped.